This podcast is brought to you by India Knowledge at Wharton. Please visit knowledge.wharton.upenn.edu/India for more information.
Inclusive growth, infrastructure development, and collaboration in science and technology were the major themes discussed at the recent Global Partnership Summit organized in Washington, D.C. by the U.S.-India Business Council. Business and political leaders from both countries participated in the event, which also marked the U.S. IBC's 33rd anniversary. India Knowledge at Wharton spoke with business leaders at the event about the challenges they face doing business in a rapidly globalizing economy.
Our guest today is Sunil Mittal, Chairman and Managing Director of the Bharti Group. Mr. Mittal, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
You started in business in 1976 at age 18 with $1,500 that you borrowed from your father. I believe your first business was making bicycle crankshafts. Could you tell us about your earliest entrepreneurial experiences and what you learned from them?
Well, as you know, I grew up, or I was raised in Ludhiana, a very industrious town, where almost everybody is an entrepreneur of some sort or some kind. And it is the bedrock of small-scale industry. And the principal industry being cycles or cycle parts, hosiery or yarn to make knitwear, and light engineering items. And coming out of college with that small amount of capital, one could only do what was allowed in the ecosystem there, and I decided to manufacture bicycle parts, in particular crankshafts. It was a hot forging unit that I put up, and that's where I cut my teeth into business.
You moved to Bombay in 1980. At that time, your business plans were a little more ambitious. Could you tell us a little bit more about your business ventures at that time?
Well, I realized that one could probably make some modest success out of what I had started to do in bicycle parts, but there was a limitation. At the end of the day, the manufacturers of bicycles decided how much, at what price you could supply to them, and just making shafts wouldn't have made you a player of any size or scale. So I was very clear that I had to get out of Ludhiana into a much bigger play in Delhi or Mumbai, Bombay at that time. And I spent about 2-3 years in Bombay importing a variety of products, steel, brass, zinc, zip fasteners, plastics, and eventually brought India's first portable generator. And that was the first turning point.
Was that the venture with Suzuki?
It was with Suzuki. And that's how I got in touch with the Japanese, spent 2 to 3 years with them learning their techniques, practices, internationalized my concepts, learned the art of diplomacy and international trade. So I would say that was the period which gave me opportunities to, on one hand, earn some significantly higher amounts of money than I could have done in cycle trade. And more importantly, gave me that independence and experience of marketing, brands, international trade. And that helped me in good stead later on.
What were the main lessons you learned at that point of your career?
I think 2 or 3 things. I realized very early on that you need to tie up with some large entities, much larger than yourself. And if you see from there on, the string of partnerships are all with very large companies, multi-billion-dollar corporations. So Suzuki, AT&T, Siemens, Lucky Gold Star at that time now, LG, and Suzuki Motor Company was there, of course. British Telecom Italia. So that is what I followed. Tie up with large companies. And it's easy to say, but large companies intuitively don't, ally with small companies or entrepreneurs. So one had to persuade these large companies, show them the Indian market, your high governance structure despite being a small company, and give them the comfort to join hands with you to exploit and come into the Indian market together.
How did you enter the phone business?
Well, that I would say was a happy stance. In fact, you can call it an accident because the government banned the import of generators. And one fine day there was no business. All the business that I developed was gone. And my beat was Japan, Korea, Taiwan. I went back into those areas looking for a new product. And one of the theories that I built around my entrepreneurship was do things that have not been done before. Because if you're competing with the big boys in areas where they're strong, there was no chance for us to succeed. And in my quest to now look for the next big breakthrough product, which also didn't need too much capital, was met in Taiwan in a trade fair when I saw push-button telephones. And I brought India's first telephone set replacing the rotary phones. And that became a huge success, and my romance with telecom started thereafter. So it went on to cordless phones, answering machines, fax machines, and then India's first mobile phone.
India in those days was such a highly regulated market and an especially challenging environment for somebody who wanted to be innovative. How did you navigate your way around those currents?